Hello and good evening from the ISTQB General Assembly, which is also the place where the A4Q Testing Summit is taking place today. I'm very happy to have Alfonsina Morgavi here with the presentation. Alfonsina has around 25 years of experience in the field of QA and is truly an expert in the field. So I'm very happy to have you here, and I'm happy to hand over to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is what we are going to talk about today. We are going about risk-based testing. Okay, this is just a definition I wanted to leave you here, but I also want you to remind what ICQB glossary defines as risk. And it says that it's a factor that could result in future negative consequences, usually expressed as impact and likelihood. But let's get into the field. This is a funny, I see a funny picture, and I always remember in Indiana Jones pictures that in risky situations, he always says, "Don't worry, I'll come up with a solution." This is without doubt an heroic response. This is exactly what we don't have to do. I think that if a project manager is not one step ahead of risks, he and his team will work in a reactive manner and take actions only when something goes wrong with the project, just as Indiana Jones. As we all know, all the industries can experiment risks. So we in IT are not an exception. This presentation is based on a proactive strategy to control and manage risks. When will the proactive strategy should start? Well, I think that the best moment is at the beginning of the project. My first experience with risk was a long time ago. I think that maybe 20 years ago. And the first thing I thought or I considered was the lessons learned in previous projects. At that time, we didn't have so much books or papers about that. So that was my first source to begin to think about risks. From that moment onwards, I started developing a risk spreadsheet. And at that time, I wondered what would happen if any of those adverse situations that occurred were repeated and how I was able to manage them. Whether we like it or not, risks are there. Some of them are obvious. They are just in front of our eyes, but others are deliberately hidden and not so evident. We have to keep in mind that also risks have a special ability, and that is to mutate. Well, now that I hope that I have worried you at least just a little, we can get directly into risks. Prevention and mitigation starts by identifying risks, getting stakeholders involved and making plans to manage and minimize the threats and risks. And I want to stop here when we talk about stakeholders. And I wanted to say that it is not always easy to identify the correct stakeholder. So identify risks, identify the stakeholders who has to be involved, implemented what we have planned in order to manage and risk and minimize our vulnerabilities. I think that it is not enough to talk about these topics. We must take action and perform risk-based testing. I was said many years ago, Alfonsina, don't take risks only for a walk. You have to do something with them. So the overall purpose of risk-based testing, what we are going to talk today, is to test in an efficient and effective way, driven by risks. I would like to underline, I hope you remember DMMI in level 2, the process area, test policy and strategy, specific goal, establish a test strategy. TMMI is for free. You can download it from the site. You have very explicit details of how to do this, of identifying, managing, controlling in a continuous and unanticipated manner. One thing that is very important is that it is not that you identify the risks one day and you leave it there. It's every day managed. They need to be managed every day. One of the things that we want to avoid is to walk over a tightrope. The project manager is not Indiana Jones, and reactive strategies are not effective. I think that everything is to be proactive instead of reactive. Okay, first of all, I would like to separate the project risks from the product risks. The project risks in testing are related to the management and control of the testing project. This means lack of staff, tight deadlines, changing requirements, and so other many things that we are going to see in the next slides. The product risks are exactly about the object being tested. And we are also going to see separately from the project risks. Okay. Any kind of risk has at least two features: uncertainty, and this means that the risk may occur or not, may happen or not, and the loss. If I put here, if risk becomes a reality, unintended consequences will occur. I would like to say that the loss in this case finally always kicks somehow the budget. If you have a loss, sooner or later has its impact in the budget. Okay. General risks. I'm not sure if it is possible to answer all these questions I wrote here, and there are others, but the ones that I wrote here, I think that they are the most important. I don't think it's always possible to answer these questions, at least at the beginning of the project. Some of them, yes. Maybe how critical will the system be for the organization? I think that the business area can tell us how important will be and what it is the system going to be used. Maybe this is not easy, but a more easy answer. What functionalities are the most critical ones for the business purpose? This is another thing that somehow the business has to answer. But in my last projects, I had experience talking with the business people that everything for them is critical. So this is a very important point to stop and really identify what's critical and what is not critical for the business. Another thing is impact on security. Well, as usual, almost all the companies have a security area so they can look after this. Most significant financial impact. Okay, this is another important thing that at the beginning of the project is very difficult to answer. And what aspects of previous or similar projects cause problem? This answer is that we have is the moment in when we have to take those lessons learned in the past. Other questions. What kind of problems would cause the most unfavorable publicity? You know, some time ago, at least some years ago, at least in South America, we had a couple of failures that made a very bad publicity to those companies, and they had an important loss of users getting into their site to buy. So this is very important. To the publicity is very important. In this case, I think that it's very important to involve the marketing area. Another thing is the cost of a system failure. In my previous presentation, the previous presentation I was listening to, Andreas talked about metrics. This is very important. We need to know how much a failure will cost us. And the last one here, what critical decisions are made based on the information the system provides. Some reports are just to know something that it's not going to be important in the future. But just suppose that the information that is provided by the system is wrong, and the CFO takes a decision over that on the for the information that was provided by this report. Okay, let's see something more about project risks. I think that is we in general are very optimistic when we evaluate several things. I have been in several projects for the last 25 years, and at least 60% of them, their complexity was underestimated. And the size, I think that the systems somehow have the ability to grow and grow and grow. Well, another thing is if you underestimate the complexity and the size of the project, or you are going to do, of course, bad estimations, at least not realistic. Another problem is when the scope is not clear, maybe because it's not clear because you have interfaces with, I don't know, outside the company, etc., 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 or the business is not absolutely sure of the scope of the system. This is always something that is going to have an influence over the budget. Another important thing is that when you don't have the adequate resources for the project, like tools, right staff, test environment, or everything you need to run the project. Another problem is when stakeholders are not adequately involved. In some projects, I had a problem that the stakeholders said that they were very busy as to get involved in the way we needed, and when they are not immersed in the project, we will have problems. One of the things that, to me, that in the bottom of my heart, I'm still a tester, are the problem with the requirements. When they are ambiguous, obsolete, missing, incomplete, incorrect, or when you can trace them. This is a very big source of risks. Another thing is when when the manager, the project manager, is not aware of all these things, it is possible to make unrealistic planning. So here, this will impact on the budget too. And regarding to the testing itself, we can say that if we don't have a good process or a mature testing process, we will have a problem. If the testers are not involved in the project from the very beginning, or if they don't are trained in the things they need to run the project, if they don't have autonomy to report what they see, or after the execution of during the execution of the project, well, lots of things that I think that we have to keep in mind and never forget about project risks. Okay, you know that I talked a couple of slides before about problems in the requirement. And this is very funny and I like it very much. Even small requirement errors can lead to big problems. This is very funny for me, so I like to share you. Okay, let's see about product risks. At least some of them, the most important under my point of view. You can see it from two different perspectives. The perspective inside out, from the inside to the outside. This is what we are going to talk right now. And the other perspective is outside in. This means that what weaknesses or potential faults may there be in this component? This is relative to testing, to the testers. If one tester had tested a component like this that is going to test now, I think that we can look at after the lessons learned to take care of this test. What kind of input or situations may there be that could trigger failure in this component? The matter is that we really need to use all the lessons learned and to try to understand all the things about the product we are going to test. How do we do this? This technique requires work sessions between the developers, the testing areas, and we need to somehow to clear and to understand very clear how those components work. Outside in is maybe you have quality criteria that are for vertical markets. You know, if you work in health, you have to look after some things. There are also some isotopes and other sources that can somehow have influence in which you are going to test. What I did in all my project, for all my projects, is I designed, like a general list of risk that it is growing and again growing. Yes, it is that I am feeding with each project, with thinking about the complexity, the size, the criticality, everything that I've been learning during these years. Though these are universal risks, we can say, for testing projects, I think that they are very useful. After that, you have to do a special spreadsheet of risks for the project in particular you are working on. Risk catalogs are very, very useful. and help us to handle and interpret and to do an interpretation of the fault. Well, some ideas. Before this, I would like to say what should a spreadsheet of risks should have. I think that a spreadsheet of risks may have, wait a minute, I don't want to forget nothing. The identification of the risk, of course, is one. Another one is the description of the risk. Another one is the context to which the risk, the affected context by this risk, the state of the risk, the author, and to which is assigned that risk to be solved or at least to be mitigated. Okay, some ideas. I think that to find out which are the risks for a project in particular, I think that we have to make an effort with all the areas involved, all the stakeholders. I think that another thing very important is to break down the requirements, evaluate the risks associated to each requirement. As I talked before, requirements are a very big source of risks. We have to determine the requirement critical as low, medium, and high, so as to see what is to be, what is mandatory to be tested, what is advisable, or what is desirable. Assign each risk a factor or a coefficient, and create and prioritize the test planning based on the risks, focus on the business needs. This is very important. I think that we have to keep in mind all the time that everything we are doing is to solve, to give a solution to the business area. Okay, why does risk-based testing fail at least sometimes? The perception and attitude towards the risk. I think that sometimes we are so aware of the risks and we don't classify them in the way they need to be classified. The perception is very important, and this has to be on. It is important to see not the risks with objective criteria, and do something about them. When the testing team is working in isolation without being part of all the project and involved with all the people in the project, this is a problem too. Another thing very important is when a risk, a typical risk, become the norm, you can see that risk in one project and in the next one and in the next one, because you begin to consider that it is not a risk, is what happens all the time in our projects. Another thing is that in some projects I've seen that it is made a spreadsheet of risks and it is not outdated because it is living. I think that this is everyday work. And another thing for which risk-based testing sometimes fail is when the product and the project risks are managed in the same way. It is important to say that not necessarily all the stakeholders will be involved in the product risks and in the project risks. They are not necessarily the same, okay? Well, after all this, I always try to remind myself some of Murphy's laws. I don't know if this happened to you, but in my projects, these are the 5 rules that are always present. Think that if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. What does it mean? That if something can go wrong, is because there is a risk, maybe revealed, or maybe hidden, very intelligent hidden. Um, Nothing is easy as it looks. We have seen in the previous slides that when we underestimate the complexity or the size of the project, it seems that we look at it as very easy. Everything takes longer than you think. I've been involved in so much projects, and just in few of them, we ended on time and on budget. If there is a possibility of several things going wrong, the one that will cause most damage will be the one to go wrong. Well, this is not all the time, but it happens. Just to finish, I would like to say that if we don't manage risks, they will manage us. I think that is a very important topic to have in mind. A couple of things more that I would like to say is that one thing that is very important is that sometimes if risks are described very abstractly, it is very difficult to manage them and to mitigate them. And some mitigations of risks may be too costly. So the cost of mitigating it is more high than what will happen if the risk reveals. Another thing is when risk assessment is based on subjective criteria. I think that we have to be the more objective as possible, and we have to do meetings to understand the risk that all the stakeholders can find in the project. But though we do that, something always go wrong, and we did not have take care of it. I think I just on time. I don't know if there are further questions. I'm so sorry. I'm very accelerated. I think I explained myself quite good.
Yeah, you did. Thank you, Alfonsina, for this presentation. It was very nice to listen to. And yeah, for now, we didn't receive any questions or comments. So there might be some popping in afterwards. So if there are questions coming in, we can let you know. Otherwise, people can also reach you via LinkedIn. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so perfect. So if anyone has questions for the from the presentation, just contact Alfonsina directly or put the comments underneath the presentation, just under YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you are watching. And then we are happy to forward this question to Alfonsina. I also want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who was watching the presentations and who was involved in the A4Q Global Testing Summit. This time, first time live from the ISTQB General Assembly. And yeah, stay tuned and keep in line to watch the last presentation, the closing from Stefan and Werner. And thanks to everyone watching. And
okay, thank you.
Alfonsina.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.